breaks right this minute. I have a job, she needs a job. Simple as that. Speaking of ship money, Maria continued, I don't know how much she'd be able to pay you. If she works out, I'll put her on nights in a few weeks, but if she's staying at the Rainbow, I'd say she's not got much. Maria nodded to the duffel on the floor in the corner. That's hers. Reckon it's all she owns, seeing as how she came in on the bus. Didn't want to leave it at the motel in case it got swiped. Chris eyed the bag. Your place is furnished, which she's going to need, Maria reminded him. Up to you to work out whether or not you'll take her on and how much you want for rent if you do. None of my business. She doesn't have any ID, though. Leastways, none that she'll produce. You wouldn't end up dead in your office, Maria? Chris chastised. Maria snorted. I could pound that little twig into the ground if I had a mind to, and I'll remind you that somebody already did. She didn't flinch when I mentioned a drug test, and for what it's worth, I believe her that she could pass it. I've hired enough users over the years to spot one right off. I did call her boss in Denver. Knows her as Crystal. Chris shook his head and rolled his eyes at Maria. Says that's her middle name, Maria countered, grinning. Damn it, Maria. Don't look at me like that, Maria snapped. You hired that skinny kid a while back. Chris scowled. He had hired a lanky kid who'd had to walk a dirt bike to Burnout for some parts. He'd gotten the bike in trade, and whatever the kid had traded for it, he'd gotten the worse end of the deal. The bike was a piece of crap, and worse yet, the kid could barely afford a spark plug. Chris put the plug in one hand and a broom in the other. Emilio had turned out to be his name, and he was a good investment to boot. He was a fast learner, didn't mind working for shit pay plus dirt bike parts, and one day he'd make a halfway decent mechanic. But just because Chris had gotten lucky didn't mean Maria would. In fact, she'd gotten screwed hiring lowlifes more often than it ever worked out for her. Anyway, Maria continued, her boss vouches for her. She worked for him for almost 5 months. Never late, no drama. Kept her head down. He never mentioned a boyfriend, and therefore I didn't ask. In case it was him. Maria shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. It's not like he's going to admit to beating on her if he did. But he didn't seem overly interested in her or whereabouts, so my guess is he was just her boss. I'm not running some kind of halfway house here, Shooter. Amanda took off, left me high and dry. The girl wants to work, and if she's laying low from her old man, it's none of mine, never mind. She's not your responsibility other than as your tenant, if you take her on. Her job here's got nothing to do with you, but I don't know too many people that have a place for rent within walking distance. She doesn't work out, we both get burned, but I need a waitress, and you need a renter. Chris sighed and looked up at the ceiling. All right, but if she gives you any shit here, you let me know so I know what kind of shit I can expect on my end. Deal. Hayley was refreshing a regular named Milo's coffee when she both felt and heard heavy boots crossing the wooden floor coming toward her. She turned slightly to see the man Maria had called Shooter. He stopped in front of her and crossed his arms in front of his chest. He had a tattoo on his right forearm, but Hayley didn't get a good look. Can I get you something? She asked him. No, he replied curtly. She frowned up at him. He had brown hair that was just barely long enough to get a little bit of a wave to it. His eyes were hazel and glittering hard at her. She couldn't think what she could have done wrong, since until now she'd never so much as spoken to him. She considered asking when he suddenly said, You looking for a place? Hayley was startled and looked past the man toward the bar for Maria, but she wasn't there. Yeah? She finally replied, bringing her eyes back to him. I have one, about 6 blocks from here, in the opposite direction of the Rainbow, which is where you're staying, right? She nodded. Alone? He asked sharply. What? You stay at the Rainbow alone? 'Cause I don't want more than one person living in my house. Hayley stared at him. Your house? I can't live with you in your house. He gave her a look that made her feel about as intelligent as a hamster. It's a house that I own, therefore it's my house. I don't live there. Hayley considered this. Oh. Hayley considered the odds of this man killing her in bed late at night. I do need a place. Maybe, she licked her lips nervously. Maybe I could take a look at it. There. She'd left herself some wiggle room. If this guy didn't ease up off the badass vibe, she'd just tell him it was too small or too big, or didn't have a washer and dryer so she couldn't possibly live there. Not that most of her places had ever actually had